All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to this episode. Today we have the amazing Araya and Ra. Good
Hello,
morning
hello.
or good evening, everyone. I'll just share a little bit of about Araya. She's a psychic medium, healer, life coach, and teacher, and author of The Dragon Within, and affectionately known as the Dragon Lady to many of her friends and clients. She has a unique relationship with the dragons that allows her to guide others who experience the dragons to understand them, connect with them, be healed by them, and even wake up to their own dragon self. And over the last 5 years, the dragons have inspired her Way of the Dragon Heart and Quantum Flight programs to assist those with the dragon lineage. And whether they're the DragonHearts, the DragonRiders, or the DragonKeepers, to fully merge with that higher aspect of themselves and step into who they are. So that just sounds like, oh my God, I want to know all about it. which is how we connected, So how are you doing, Araya?
Oh, I'm good. I am super excited because tomorrow I am kicking off the next Quantum Flight program, and I have probably the most amazing group yet of individuals ready to really step into who they be. And yeah, the process that is undergone as the dragons bring those groups together always astounds me. It's always beautiful to watch the unfolding and the specifics of a group that come together. So I'm just really in my excitement right now of starting a new program, of just coming off some experiences in the mountains with the dragons. I always love to talk dragons. So when you invited me to do this, absolutely, I will sit down and talk dragons with anybody.
Yeah,
Once you
and
get me going, it's going to be hard to get me to stop.
well, I suppose that's probably where, some of our common interests or will lie. And obviously I've been feeling the dragon energies for a number of years without really specifically searching for someone to help me to understand or to integrate them. It's a bit, not, I wouldn't say slower, but just, a bit of, like some insights here and there until the day I finally said, you know what, I'm sure there's someone who's specifically working with dragons. And, you do what you do on Google and you're like, how to bring through the dragon energies and, just a bit of Googling. And as we trust in the universe and the synchronicities, one thing led me to another. And then I'm reading your page and, feeling your energy. I'm like, right, I'm just going to do a session with her and she's going to tell me all about what's happening with myself. So tell us a bit more of maybe how you first connected with the dragon energies and maybe why there's so much of it kind of percolating and increasing in the air. What do you think?
Ooh, yeah, there's my body tingles. It is increasing, and the awareness of them, because their presence is so much more at the forefront, because the collective is ready. We're in the point of the ascension process that they hold the keys to, of really being ready to flip that switch, being ready to go into our merge point, and they hold all the codes for that, which is why we even interact with them. They were the originators of helping create and hold the template of this universe. They were invited to be in service as this was being created and said, yes, yep, we'll hold the template, we'll hold the grids. That's what we love to do. That's where we're specialists at. And so it's been a long history for those dragons that have been holding that template.
Yeah.
And many are here in body now, like myself, like many that do my programs, who are part of the Lightworker team here to help people wake up. No matter what their origin, their original lineage signature is, the dragons hold the activation codes and keys because they were part of that origination team, because they hold that underlying grid. So for me, I went, meditation is what turned my whole journey around. And I was blessed in 1994 to spend 10 days at a Buddhist monastery in southern Thailand to learn how to meditate. And I didn't use it right then, but a full cycle later, when I came back around to having time to dedicate to it, the winter of 2002 to 2003 is when my awakening happened. I turned 36. My guides were like, quit your job and what?
Why
I
does
have a
that always
guardian
happen at
angel.
36?
Yeah, that's what happened.
Like, yep, yep.
I was the Chamber of Commerce director where I lived, and I felt this energetic hand in the middle of my back saying, no, it's time to take a leap of faith, trust us. I'm like, you're not even giving me a segue bridge here. What am I supposed to pay my house payment and I'll feed my animals with, you know? Like, and so I made that leap of faith, and I had contract work here and there coming in to cover bases. And I lived very simply for a couple of years, and I allowed myself 1 to 2 hours minimum a day of meditation. That was where everything started unfolding. And so my primary guide showed up, who I now know is the Crystal Dragon. He presented in a different form originally because I wouldn't have been comfortable with dragons right off the bat. And I think that happens for a lot of people who maybe they're comfortable with angelic presence or fairies or star beings of some kind, to open the gates to what's beyond the veil. And then the dragons can step forward as that person is really ready to receive what they have to give, because there's so much history collectively of persecution of the dragons, being afraid of them and hunting them or fighting against them. And that's why the dragons receded. You know, they used to be here present on the planet. I believe they will be again at some point. But they receded into, you could say, into the mists like Avalon. You could say down into the elemental templates where we see them in the rocks and the trees and the oceans. And I experienced some in the mountains this week, found some more, and there they were, and they're very evident when you finally can see them. But for me, my guide, who I didn't realize at the time was the Crystal Dragon, was showing me and helping me remember my own healing gifts and my ability to work with energy. And so I started doing that and was encouraged to start doing it with and for people. And it was as I was working on people that all of a sudden this energy started presenting, that the only term I could give it was dragon. And it was wings coming out of their back, or a tail stuck in their hips where they were having back or hip pain, or specific things structurally in their body that they couldn't explain, and they'd been there chronically and the doctors didn't have a resolution. And so as I'd work with them energetically and feel this wing and like pull it and stretch it out and release it, all of a sudden their back pain would be gone, or their hip pain, their sciatic, whatever. And it was very interesting because I didn't really know what to tell them at first. I was like, how do I tell this person there's a dragon in your spine? And what do I do with that then? So that was my first introduction. And then the dragons started coming in more and more. They were always present in my sessions. I went to it was called the Womb of the World Gathering. It was a retreat out in Hawaii on the Big Island. And that weekend was when everything shifted for me. And the facilitator knew that that would happen. He was very intuitive, and he met me, said, oh, you're the dragon one. You have dragons. You're going to have a role to play this weekend. And I said, I'm just here as a participant. I don't want to roll. I just really, you let me know. You know, I was very sarcastic and flippant back at that part of my journey, that resistance wall of like not ready to own my stuff and my power. And so over the course of 3 days, I did end up facilitating by the end a really beautiful activation for all of the women that were there, unexpectedly being drawn into this sacred pool, feeling the dragon come into the water. And I was drawn into the water to merge with her. And she was a dragon that I had been, she's my dragon, she's me in that dragon aspect. But I realized later that I had been working with her in meditation for quite some time, where I was drawn to the bottom of the ocean off the coast of Peru, where she was deep asleep. And I would just sit with her. And then eye movement started. And then eventually her eye opened and we were communicating heart to heart. And at some point it dawned on me, this is me. And you know, where do I go with that? But here she was in the Pacific and energetically coming up into Hawaii, into this pool, massive as she is. She somehow made herself small enough for this pool and yet bigger than me. And it was the first time that I raised my head out of the water, and I knew that I was not looking through my human eyes. I was looking through her dragon eyes. Everything had multiple facets, sort of like you envision like fly or bee eyes, where there's multiple facets. And it was sort of hazy, as if there was water dripping over her eyes. And I realized, well, something major has just happened. I am looking through her and she through me. And then this whole journey of activating each of these women, I knew exactly what their codes were. The light language started flowing, and they all walked out of the water and felt transformed. They felt something big shift. So that was truly the beginning. And it was actually, I want to say 6 weeks later, that I was on a plane to Glastonbury to write the book. And that's, so you mentioned it before, that's The Dragon Within. This is the book. It's right now in French, English, and Spanish. I do have it in Dutch. I just haven't formatted it yet. Paperback and hardback and e-book in 3 different formats. But that was something that when he looked at me over lunch after the retreat was over, and he said, you have a book to write now.
Yeah.
And I didn't even blink. I said, yeah, I do. And I was literally on a plane 6 weeks later.
Well, when you know, and it sounds like you have already been doing all your work of the deep listening, and so heeding the call. So because you had developed these meditation skills and that ability to connect, I think you already had met her, and then obviously eventually got the messages that, oh, this is me. So how do people start recognizing the dragon energies as they show up? And I'm sure it's different for everyone. You're very claircognizant and clairvoyant. You can see them. So how would people start recognizing that energy coming in? What do you think?
Yeah, well, there is a huge spectrum on that. I would say the majority of people that are on a spiritual path start either having experiences or knowings themselves, or by someone else that they're receiving a healing session with, whether that's a reading, a massage, a Reiki session, where that healer is intuitive enough to feel and let them know, what, there's a dragon in the room, and they'll describe it to them. And sometimes that's their first introduction to, what do you mean there's a dragon around me? Yeah. And some people are a little intimidated by that. They don't know what to do with it. And then they start searching. So that's often the way that it gets introduced, is through someone who does have that connection. But others just start to have this inkling where dragon images will show up and they're really drawn to them, or they realize how much they've loved dragons. Like as a kid, they always drew them, or they always read stories about them, or they were drawn to that. And then as an adult, they're remembering that passion and sort of coming into curiosity as to why. Yeah. And they start just sort of sensing a presence. You don't have to be super clairkinetic or clairvoyant or clairvoyant anything to just start having that intuitive knowing of there's something around me. Yeah. And maybe I can't see it, maybe I can't hear it, maybe I can't describe it fully, but I can tell that it's some kind of form like a dragon, or people have some kind of an inkling. And then from there, that's where they often do a search on Google and find me, so that they can get the basis of, what do I do with that? Yeah. Whether they're very, some are great meditators already, and they've been on their path with angelic guides, and maybe they've delved into the fairy kingdoms or shamanic journey work, or working with Reiki. And then all of a sudden it's their time to really come home to a deeper truth. And all of a sudden they'll start having a bunch of dragons show up. Yeah. And they'll be able to communicate and get those messages and get insight. So, it's the whole spectrum. Yeah, it is. Of levels of experience and what you're ready for, because the dragons will not show up until you're ready. So if they're showing up, it means, 1, that you are ready, and 2, that you should be paying attention and be ready for a big shift, because once the dragons are there, things move very, very quickly. They're super efficient. They don't waste time. They're like, all right, let's go.
Which is totally in line with my personality. Let's not waste time here. Let's get straight to it. Well, they showed up to me, I don't even know when, but, as you mentioned, look back on childhood or look back on your interest. I do definitely think I've always had an interest in the dragons. I've always watched the dragon movies, whether it's the cartoon ones or the Disney ones or any of them. It's just a fascination with that whole realm, the whole realm of fantasy and sci-fi, and just feeling, like I always loved those movies without really knowing why. Yeah. Until I dropped into the shamanic work, and, all of the first guides that came through, were all from these realms. It's the unicorns, the phoenixes, the angels. Then dragon came a bit later. But I actually remember asking my teacher, like, oh, why do I always have these guides? Like, why can't I get some earth ones like the ones that everyone else has? But, I think that's probably part of, the lineage and all the spiritual maturity in past lives that we've had. And so when dragon came to me, it was also in some other group container. And there were probably 15, 16 of us, and we're all journeying for our guides for that year. So it was like a year-long journey. And I remember vividly when I was going there, and I was going into the cave, and then the guide would come, and then it was like boom, and it was this like big dragon that filled up the whole room. Like I couldn't even move. Like I was like pressed against the wall visually. Like I didn't feel it so much as an
Yeah.
energy, but it was just like whoa. And then it was interesting because it kind of transformed into a dragonfly. And I felt like it was actually okay, if I'm too much for you, I could be a dragonfly.
Yeah.
And then discerning that energy, I remember having that discussion with the teacher, and she's like, "Well, will you listen to the dragon, or do you want to work with the dragonfly?" I'm like, "Oh no, the dragon." And over a period of time, I think the dragon had already come because I was doing some tattoo work, some sacred tattooing and coding, and because it was fully channeled, I sat up, and then it was like, oh my God, like that's a dragon's face looking at us. And it was just, again, in the journey to seal and code that energy, it was all about the dragon, blah, blah, blah. And therefore it was that push of, okay, surely there's deeper meaning, why is the dragon here? What are we doing? So, still working on those energies. I've had quite an experience, even just in the weeks leading up to, this quantum flight program about to start tomorrow. So, dragons are definitely here and feeling that activation in all layers. So, what is merging with? I know we're going to talk, maybe if you'd like to share a bit more about the DragonRiders, DragonKeepers, and DragonHearts. So, what does it mean? Like, what does it mean for us when we can actually fully merge with that self? So I think we've probably discussed a little bit of that highest embodiment of our multidimensional self. It's like, do you
Mhm.
think that all of us have some creature or energy as our highest embodiment? And what does it mean for us to fully merge?
Well, for me, my own lineage, when I look at someone's soul signature and why dragons find me, that it's the dragons that I can help activate and wake up just because of who I am in my own dragon lineage. But when I look at soul signature, for me, it's a format. So if I'm created on as a soul by mother, I call mother, father, God. You can call it creator, source, whatever works for you. But when a soul is created, it has a specific signature, which is an energetic imprint. There's a geometric, there's a color pattern, there's a sound wave, what I call the heart song. Everything about that with its characteristics, its gifts, its treasures, its personality, that's the soul. And
Mm.
so that soul energetic format, mine originated with a dragon signature. And I know that I was part of one of those original dragon realms where all of the beings created within that realm came with that signature. That was what God wanted to express in that moment of creation of these types of beings, and what would they be able to do? What would they be capable of? For example, dragons are great shapeshifters. So when you say he'd shift into a dragonfly, of course he would. He will make himself presentable even as an angel or a unicorn or something, to merge you into that space of acceptance until you recognize the deeper energy pattern. And not everyone is created in that original dragon realm. There are those that were created in the fairy realms and the rainbow realms. So in the
Mm.
magic Devic kingdoms, where there are the centaurs and the phoenix and the trolls and the fairies and all those magical beings, that would be their original soul signature. If that was their first presentation of being on a soul energetic level, being created by that breath of God, then that's their signature. And they will go back to that when they're merging back to that. So there are many beings here that are light workers who are here to assist humanity get to a space where this planetary experience can offer the evolutionary step of ascension
Mm.
into something bigger, into their original blueprint. Well, there are humans on the planet that's their first soul format. and they will need to go into an ascension process into that blueprint of that human format. I'm getting back to my dragon one. Someone else might be a star being as their very first format. And so when they're merging with that, that's going to be what they relate to most predominantly as they're waking up to themselves. They're going to be really called on a deep level to star beings, whether they're Pleiadian, Arcturian, Lyran. There's so many. And many of us have ways of reaching ourselves that those elements call us. I know that I went through so many aspects of my awakening journey where I experienced and dove into shamanism. And because of the many lifetimes I've had here, it was a very natural thing. It was a very easy in for me, as was meditation, because of all my Buddhist monk lifetimes. There's many patterns that were like, step into it. Oh, I remember this. Okay. That has to do with our past life choices in this earth plane.
Yes.
But all of those, so there was shamanism, and then there was a lot of stuff about star beings. I read books by Barbara Marciniak on the from the Canadians, and so many of those spoke to me. And early on in my journey, it was like someone was putting in black and white everything that I was feeling and didn't have words for. And that was the trajectory to get me further and further back to where I could finally recognize and own the dragon energetic print.
So it sounds like the merge then is really the reclamation of that highest self. And in your case, in my case, the highest is the dragon imprint. But it also sounds like along the way, we must be merging and reclaiming other parts of self. Does that sound like the path?
Well, it depending on the age of the soul. So if the dragon realms are one of the original, then most people that feel like they're a really old soul, they've been here many, many times, they've been doing this stuff for a long time. There's something about it that makes you recognize, well, and I've had memory of how the dragons helped build this universe to be able to hold the energetic grids, because bringing it into being energetically, you have to set in place the 12 dimensional layers and the 11 dimensional layers and the 10 dimensional layers, and you drop it all the way down until there's the ability to drop it into an elemental matter, the slowest vibration to have third density. Well, that means that we dropped in on 8th dimensional and 7th, and some of those places we took star being bodies in order to get used to the format of what a human framework would be like, because that's a good segue. It's a good intermediary. They have very similar blueprinting, and that would in turn lead on a soul level. If I have all these incarnational experiences as star being body or as a unicorn body, then I'm going to be able to relate to those, and it's going to help trigger those memories for me as I go back up that chain into the core format, you know, the original, what some people call an oversoul or monad.
Yeah, that makes sense, because it's not like I don't relate to the star beings or whatnot. It's actually, you know, you mentioned those books by Barbara, the Pleiadians. It's like, yes, you know, yes, that makes sense, that resonates. So I guess it's almost like creating a pathway of resonant frequencies and experiences, spiritual, you know, lineages and maturity to get you back to that ultimate place. So yeah, glad that I perked up on listening on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
so
a path of remembering.
It is.
You know, because we descended down into different trajectories. We all had to drop through the dimensional layerings. Even if my oversoul is this very high dimensional dragon aspect, in this universe, we're playing in the 3rd to 12th dimensional fields. So we had to keep dropping down into different formats to experience those. And, you know, for example, spend a great deal of time, if Orion is 5th dimensional format, and that was, say, a base for creation of the next drop down energetically, then we were working with other teams from different universe, you know, different multiverse systems that wanted to be part of the formatting, be part of the experiment, part of the teams creating this earth plane. Then we were in body forms to be able to not just commingle, but work together as teams for that creation.
Yeah.
Sometimes we did have dragon bodies in those. There were dragons in that Orion field, but we also chose sometimes to take different body formats for different reasons in our own journey.
Yes.
And so we do resonate with some more than others, and why everybody's journey home back into that merge is subtly different because
Totally.
they came in on a different trajectory.
Yeah. And I think that's probably a really good point to emphasize as well, you know, to any listeners or anyone trying to remember themselves, and in all the ways that that means, is like, they're really, to me, no dogmatic, no straight, no one path to get there. You know, the as long as that intention is to come home to self, I feel like, you know, that alignment in itself, that intention in itself, will probably allow the synchronicities to happen, to find the healers, the mentors, the facilitators, you know, whatever you need. So I think that's important probably to emphasize, because I always wondered, oh, why did I wait till I was, you know, whatever it was, probably 36 before I left my corporate job? How come,
Yeah.
you know, I need to take this long? And oh, they've been in, you know, doing this for decades. And so I think it's probably just important to remind people there is no time other than the divine time. And everyone that, you know, is placed on your path, it will be, you know, the right person, and for you to recognize that. And I love how you
Exactly.
say, you know, about the energies and the beings working together to create and come together. But that's no different than us now in our human form needing to
Yeah.
come together to work together on every level, right? Like us
Yeah.
doing this work again in this third density, but with that embodiment and with that expression of our higher selves, can definitely influence at every layer of being. Like this is, you know, like I find the key to being human is actually remembering that we are more than this body. And I know it
Yeah.
sounds simple maybe for us now, but maybe also again a reminder to the listeners, you know, don't be overwhelmed with, oh, I don't understand this language, or it feels, you know, like too much. Like, I'm still understanding it all, you know, everything you share, it's like,
Yeah.
I get it, but to experience it and to receive that information kind of directly is another thing. You know, that's
Yeah.
probably a more powerful transmission and landing of it whenever we go through it ourselves.
Right.
So
When we said on
yeah.
Everyone's sort of being on their own trajectory. Why did I wait till I was 36 to quit my corporate job? Or why is that person 20, 30 years ahead of me on their journey? Why were they born? Like, there were 20-year-olds that are where I was when I was 50. And a lot of that is really important to realize, that most of us that are on the ascension pathway know on some level this is our last lifetime on the planet, that we came in specifically like to, like, this is it, this is my final one. And if we really realize that every time that we have an incarnation in body, we have specific parameters and lessons and things we want to complete, karma that needs to be balanced, all that.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when we, like, I've had probably 6, 7 different chapters in the book of this journey as Araya on this, in this body. And I can look back on them and know they were specifically completing karmic loops and balancing and specific lessons that I wanted to be done with. And so I had to complete each of those before my awakening, because all of those have to happen in order to go into that merge. We have 0 like karmic debt left. When we go through the gateways, it's really a 0-point gateway because there's no baggage. It's all left behind. So many of us contract or design our life journey when we're coming in to have those corporate experiences, to have those family experiences, or those relationships or whatever, that maybe until we're 30 or we're 50 or we're 60, whatever it is, that we knew and designed that on purpose and still left ourselves time at the end. And there are some that I had them in session that's like, you're ready for, like, you're going to get hit hard now. It's going to be rapid fire, boom, 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 because you knew and designed to wait to the last minute, but you're still within the gateway.
Yeah. So
Because you had all
intelligent we are, huh?
you know, it's sort of like
Sometimes.
the procrastinator on the soul level that waited till the last incarnation to get these 5 pieces done, and well, I got to fit it all in. So they do it. You design it.
Yeah, we just need that thrill, right?
Yeah. Some do.
So tell us about the DragonRiders, DragonHearts, and I think DragonKeepers as well. So I think we're both DragonHearts. So what does that mean? What does that mean actually?
Yeah, what the heck is a DragonHeart? So for me, when I say my original format is Dragon Signature, I'm from the original Dragon Realms. And um, when I connect to myself and I merge with my dragon, we are one being. It's, I don't feel any difference between the two other than I can recognize, yep, there's dragon. I can feel when my dragon steps forward, and I can feel the whole face and the wings and the serpentine body. I can also be very aware and feel Araya and her limbs and her skin and her flesh and all that. But when I merge to that state, it's a state of oneness that I consider Dragon Heart. The Dragon Rider and Dragon Keeper is probably actually the same as Dragon Rider, because it's a word that I used back when I wrote the book in 2007 that has really transitioned now to understanding, because even I have, since I wrote the book, transitioned so many times in my comprehension of the dragons and how much they bring, and how many more dragon lineages and higher octaves of them have come to work with me since then, to really remember and grasp it all. So the Dragon Rider or Keeper is one that is more like a twin flame relationship, but in the same soul. But instead of splitting into like a male female human format, say, because a lot of people understand like a twin flame relationship, if you split on a soul level and you always have this aspect that is the rider and the dragon, it's a team up that allows a state of oneness in a different way than a dragon heart, where there's always these two representations. So they will always have maybe a star being and a dragon that incarnate together in a specific planetary system, or they don't always have to be a humanoid rider. I've seen a dragon rider pairing that was a unicorn and a dragon. Just because that rider can actually incarnate into multiple forms, but the dragon will always be dragon. And wherever, whatever system they go into, if one thing happens to one, it happens to the other. So they're always so interconnected in that, what I compare to like a twin flame partnering, because they're part of the same soul, but they have definitely split. Whereas the dragon heart doesn't split. And I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but
yeah. So do the dragon riders then need to kind of find their other half in that way?
I think it naturally comes into that pairing, and sometimes they're both here incarnate, but typically that higher format is going to stay as like the awakener, the one that makes sure that you remember and pulls you back into that home space where, you know, and the dragon rider can actually merge up the chain and go back into a singular format if they choose to, but it's almost like their base format works the best for them to have the pairing. The other piece I wanted to touch on, because I know we're getting short on time because I can talk forever about these guys, is the aspect of, because we hold the grids, the dragons hold the grids, they hold the blueprint for humanity, they're actually embedded within the blueprint for humanity. So not everybody is a dragon, but everybody is affected by or associated with the dragon energy waking up within them to bring them forward in their evolutionary path. And that's where the dragon within is like the Womhara dragon internally. Every single human has that, even if they don't love dragons, they don't feel like they're a dragon, they're not a dragon. But because the dragons were the ones that formatted the crystalline DNA that held it in place, it's part of that template that it's like embedded within every human.
Yeah.
That they're
it's
going
like
to have
it's in our DNA, would you say?
Yeah.
Because I've definitely heard that before, like that we each have our little dragon, you know? Is that what you mean? The womb dragon?
Yeah, it's the dragon aspect within, which is really, without getting too complex into the whole dissension of energies, but coming from the crystalline format, when we split and polarized into black and white, into light and dark, good and evil, all that, it was that separation point that is what holds the entire grid for the earth plane, and why there's the black, white, and 4 elemental pairs of dragons that are holding this grid. And it's in that crystalline DNA blueprint, because every human has the capacity to move into a crystalline DNA blueprint
Yeah.
as well, even if they're not from, you know, they're not a star being, not here as a light worker. They were incarnated first time ever here.
Mm.
And that's great. But they are going to go through that same crystalline pathway when they go through an ascension, an evolution in consciousness into a true aligned blueprint where they are at one with source, where they're
Yes.
not in a polarized field battling themselves and staying in this dimensional space of experience with all that is. And it's at that point that they will actually be able to have incarnations in other formats at some point in their journey. Doesn't rule out that they couldn't incarnate as a dragon somewhere as a soul experience.
Yeah.
Because once you get to a certain level of mastery, all the gateways open and you can explore all of them.
Yeah.
But that's their starting point.
So this dragon within, do you perceive that there's a difference between awakening and connecting to the dragon within, because all of us have that in our DNA, versus we work with a dragon guide? Like, you know, they, especially in the shamanic traditions, you know, the guides come all the time. So do you personally perceive that there is a difference in when a guide comes and helps or does work or healing work or whatever, and you awakening your own dragon within?
Absolutely. Yeah. And your guides can come in many forms.
Yeah.
If you're having dragon guides show up, so most people have angelic guides. You know, as humans, we are assigned an angelic humanoid form, guide and guardian to walk us through a whole journey. But it's when the other guides start showing up that have more important meaning for you to remember your true lineage. So the guides, they can come and work with you to help activate things in you, to help you remember certain gifts you have, to retrain you in them, like, remember this. And it's by working with those guides that you actually begin to access that inner dragon within, and your core, like my dragon heart. Part of my pathway was through that womb dragon and really coming in to know that. So there's two gateways here, and they're both sides of the same coin, where one is that womb dragon, that Wombhara internal core is like embedded in the blueprint of who I be inside this body in here. And yet when I connect from the other side, this is where I connect to my full dragon soul signature. And they're both there. For someone who's, say, a star being coming from the human side, they're still going to have that dragon gateway to pass through because it's part of that DNA stranding to get into the crystalline. But their other side of their gateway is going to be their star being format, or their angelic format, if they're cosmic angelic or something. So we do all have a piece connected to that, but some of us also have the dragon that is the soul level coming into self. And it is different than the guides, but it is the guides are essential to help us get there.
Yes. Yes, I feel that. And I suppose a thing to say is probably it doesn't matter what side of the coin we start working with. If we have an interest, if we have an inkling, if we have an intuition, like just explore it, probably. And I guess I feel like the dragons and all of them probably have such a wide range of their gifts, their frequencies, and what each dragon is here to do, what each of our incarnations are here to be or do or, you know, express. I often feel that, you know, one of the, I wouldn't say primary, because I'm sure, you know, there's many, but it just feels like every time I even touch dragon energy, there's such a power in that creation energy, and very much, you know, related to the heart, like everything kind of expressing through love. You know, what are some of like the overarching qualities of working with dragon energies? Like that's what I feel. I feel the creation, I feel that love and unconditional love kind of thing, like doesn't matter, right? And from those, you know, overarching qualities, I feel like it seeds into all the lines of dragons. Like what do you identify as the overarching qualities of why we should work with dragon energy?
Yeah, what a great question. You know, once you experience the dragons and you can stand without fear in their presence and really just feel them, that's exactly, it's an ability to feel the incredible amount of unconditional love. There's no judgment. There's no, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no positioning
Yeah.
above or below you. They stand in your presence with full presence in the amount of love that they carry. And it's because that love is so big. It's really it's the most unconditionally loving energy I've ever experienced next to Mother, Father, God itself. Like that's the only thing that is maybe bigger or more encompassing than I've experienced with the dragon. And it's because that love is so big that you can feel the power embedded within it, the wisdom embedded within it. And they stand as that example of how we're meant to merge our power and wisdom centers that have been polarized from that original crystal and heart format. We polarized it and pulled into wisdom and power. And those are the lessons in duality. It's all about wisdom or power. And when we can pull those back in and have it straight through the heart center, that's when we actually get back on track and go into our blueprint. And that I would say is like the number one characteristic of the dragons is their immense, powerful presence of love.
Yeah.
It's it's purely unconditional. It's overwhelming because it's so big and yet so embracing.
Yeah, I can definitely
you can
relate
feel
to
big
that.
energy, you can feel powerful energy that can like roll you over. And it's so embracing, you just want to fall into it and rest and go. And it's when you can do that that you actually start receiving everything that they can bring.
Yeah. It's that safety to trust that. And I feel like even just touching that door, like probably I still have some resistances to fully be in it because it's like, oh, is this true? Is this real? Really? You love me that much and I'm not going to be judged? It's like that complete place of safety. But even touching it, you know, for moments, for whatever, however long, it's like, you know, you really get to taste that power, the pure power coming from that place of, you know, like there's no agenda. The agenda is really just your growth, your evolution, however you express through that love.
They're true at their core. Their core essence is service.
Yes.
And so that's where when they're based in just that's what they're about.
Yes.
Then everything is loving. Exactly. There's no agenda. They're not serving you in order to get something from you or raise their own levels or this or that. That's what they do.
Yeah. Well, I guess when we work with higher level beings as well, you know, it's like in our evolution, if we evolve and ascend, everything evolves and ascend. You know, it's that, again, if it's rooted in the right, I don't like the word agenda, but intention, you know, then everything can create and go that way. Let's just ask one more question and then, you know, see if the dragons want to say something. What about our monad? We mentioned monad earlier, and so that's probably, you know, that oversoul concept. So if we ourselves are a dragon in our truest form, does that imply that our soul family or that monad is also all dragon beings? What's your view on that?
I guess it depends if you consider your monad to be a conglomeration or collection, a community of beings that's all family related, like stemming from whether it's parentage or it depends on your definition of monad. For me, my monad is everything that I have been. So my core soul structure is this dragon, but within that, I know that I've experienced myself in so many different formats and so many different star systems and planets and universes, and that's my monad. And when I bring those all back together, that's my structure. But for those that look at, well, my monad is all these family members that I know that I'm linked to and connected to, that to me is more of my community structure. And in that sense, I would say it most likely is, if you're a dragon, it most likely is mostly dragons at their core structure, because that's your most, not just familiar, but your structure emanates in sequences. So if your original sequencing starts here and there's others that are part of your family that also did, then you're all going to start with sort of the same formatting. Like you wouldn't have one from this kind of realm and this kind of realm because they wouldn't have started their evolution at the same point in the field of potential.
Yes. Yeah, makes sense. Well, wherever our soul families, are, or whatever we define them to be, I guess, again, I reiterate that point. Follow the path that you're divinely guided to be on, explore. I think maybe not attached to any stories as well, like, because we grow out of those stories because we
Yeah.
go on to higher paths of knowledge and wisdom. I'm sure you'll agree. So, before we close out and before I share all of Araya's beautiful offerings and links, do the dragons want to say anything to the audience? Maybe just feel if they want to have any
Yeah, I'll
message
tune
or.
in and ask them. But just to touch on what you just said, is also to realize for all the listeners, because I don't know the listening body that you typically have, what kind of audience that is. You don't have to be a dragon format to have a dragon guide show up for you.
100%.
Just
100%.
like I've had angelic guides, I've had other guides, and if a dragon guide shows up for you, just know that they hold a key piece of information for you, whether that's dropping resistance to a dragon itself, like that's a judgment. Like if you're sitting in judgment of it being like a dragon out of fear, then it's a mirror to help you break through. Like, why do I resist that? And what is this dragon here to teach me? It doesn't mean your dragon lineage. It could, especially if they keep presenting as dragons, but let that be explored. And then, yeah, let's just see if the dragons have anything specific for those that are going to be listening to this podcast share. So when I'm tuning into that, I'm feeling the presence of this beautiful, I'm just sensing this beautiful long blue dragon face. It's definitely a water dragon lineage, which is interesting because I'm water dragon lineage. And tapping into this core essence of really focusing on your emotional body, that the dragons want to encourage those that are hearing this today to allow the emotional body to be your main focus. And that the water dragons, if you are seeking assistance and guidance to work that the water dragons are the most relevant to work with to clear the emotional body. And it's the emotional body that harbors so much of our trauma and our things that we hang on to that hold us anchored in this realm. And so just encouraging working through emotion, letting it flow through you like water, and letting the water dragons come in to hold the space for you, to show you how to release it easily and let it flow out of you like water would, instead of being bunched up in a dam. That's where they want you to focus for those that are listening today.
Beautiful. It resonates deeply. Just letting that expansive energy and magnetic quality of water to just take everything and move on.
Yeah. Instead of focusing on the mental body or the belief systems, or those will come. But if you can let the emotional body just open itself and trust the water dragons to hold that space for you, it moves things a lot faster. That should be the focal point.
Yeah, and to be safe to feel our emotions. I mean, I definitely grew up without much encouragement to feel what I feel and to understand what they even mean. So let's just actually tune into that. And one of my hypnotherapy teachers used to say, emotions is just energy in motion, emotion, right? So you got to let it move. So 100%.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you to the water dragon for that message. Thank you to Araya for bringing all of this through. And I know that, we really could talk hours in the dragons, couldn't we? All right, so I will share all of Araya's links in the notes, and just sharing that after many, many years of teaching and expansion herself, you're facilitating individuals and the group programs to help everyone to expand into the connections with the realms, and particularly the dragons. So I'll just share all of your links for anyone who's actually wanting to connect, especially the Facebook groups, because there's lots of knowledge and things there. And I guess, again, just an encouragement, a gentle encouragement to anyone who's listening. If the dragons have been interesting, if you've liked the movies, if this talk is interesting, maybe it's a part of self that's wanting to emerge, that dragon within, or just working with them, because I don't think it can always benefit everyone to tap into that source of unconditional love and the power of just being free to be who we are with no judgment. So we thank
Absolutely.
Great gratitude to all the dragons and who are probably all floating around. And thank you, beautiful, for being such a wisdom holder and dragon communicator, embodiment, and all of that. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for letting me come share today.
All right.